Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 2 early thoughts and transfer plans. I do this video every single week on a Sunday immediately after the football ends, just for a bit of entertainment and to give you my early thoughts ahead of the upcoming game week. If you're enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, to make these videos available to you as soon as the football ends on a Sunday, I have to start recording just before around half-time of the second game. So it's currently half-time in the Liverpool-Chelsea game, and it is currently 1-1. And what a first half, by the way. We will, of course, discuss that in today's video. Game Week 1 has gone really, really well for me. At the moment, I've only actually had one player that's blanked. Every other player is returned. Not necessarily loads of monster hauls, but it's definitely a strong start. So we're going to quickly go through how Game Week 1 has gone for me. Then I'm going to give you some of my early thoughts ahead of Game Week 2 and what I've thought about Game Week 1 thus far. Go through what my team currently looks like for Game Week 2 and possible transfer plans too. Just a note, this is of course my early thoughts. Things will change throughout the week. This is more about entertainment and just giving you something to watch ahead of Game Week 2 on a Sunday evening. So, starting with Jordan Pickford, the only player to blank. This is a little bit frustrating. If you've watched my videos, I went on and on about how well I thought Johnston would do. I love the Crystal Palace defense. I love the fixtures. I kept saying it, and then for some reason, Jordan Pickford just made me rethink that. He looked really good in pre-season, so did Everton, and I thought the fixtures were slightly better for Pickford from Game Week 7 to 10. So I just thought a little bit longer term, I prefer Pickford. Of course, Johnson kept the clean sheet. A little bit frustrating, but it is what it is. The back four looking really good. Of course, like I said, I am at half-time in the Chelsea-Liverpool game. Ben Chilwell is absolutely incredible. The amount of attacking that man is doing, popping up at the back post, had a goal disallowed, had another couple of shots too, already has an assist. So Ben Chilwell looks everything we thought he would be and more. And my advice would be, don't bench Ben Chilwell. Don't worry about the fixtures. He is basically playing like a left winger. And regardless of whether Chelsea play a back four or back five, I think Ben Chilwell will be excellent value. Estupiñán, in a very similar way to Chilwell, was so attacking, picking up 7 points despite getting a yellow card and despite not keeping a clean sheet too. Estupiñán looks like he will be excellent value once again. And I actually made on the deadline stream a late change from Gabriel to Saliba. There were rumours going around. We didn't know exactly what the rumours were, but there were rumours going around that you should maybe drop Gabriel towards the back end of the deadline stream. I gave you that info as soon as I got that info. And as a result, I made a switch from Gabriel to Saliba. Gabriel was, of course, dropped. Saliba picked up a very lucky assist for Saka's goal, but that did mean he came away with 5 points. Martinelli also came away with 5 points as well. He looked okay. We're going to discuss him later in the video because I'm not convinced by Martinelli. I wasn't convinced going into Game Week 1, and I'm still not convinced personally, but he did pick up an assist. Saka obviously scoring, does still look like the best Arsenal attacker in my opinion, and I think we've got a very, very big season ahead for Bukayo Saka. Mbeumo got 7 points, missed a big chance, missed a couple of smaller chances too. Classic Mbeumo, really good data, getting lots of chances, not necessarily converting them. But he did, of course, score what was probably a very soft penalty, but it was really, really nice to get that attacking return. And this is the reason I chose Mbeumo. It wasn't luck. You could say it was luck. I don't think it's luck. I chose him because he's on penalties and he got a penalty. And for me, that's not necessarily lucky. It's just good that he did get that penalty and that he at least converted the penalty too. The other two midfielders that I'm still waiting for, because of course that is Monday Night Football, is Rashford and Fernandes. Fernandes is probably the slightly bigger differential, so hopefully we get something from him. And then just move on to the front two. Haaland is Haaland. This is why I captained him. This is why we own him. I'm just not looking to captain anyone else for the time being, in my personal opinion. And then I've got João Pedro with the 7-pointer, exactly the same as Mbeumo. Didn't necessarily play that well. Missed a big chance himself, which he really should have converted, but he was on penalties and he scored a penalty. And again, this is why we choose penalty takers in our team, especially when they're at a cheaper cutthroat price. So I'm really, really happy with how Game Week 1's gone thus far. Hopefully Chilwell gets something in the second half. You'll know that at the time of watching this. And hopefully Rashford and Fernandes have a really strong Monday Night Football. But that was the team for Game Week 1. Let's take a look on a little bit more detail how I thought Game Week 1 went and a few things that maybe caught my eye. So guys, if you do want something to watch on a Sunday, as I said, I do this pretty much every single Sunday or Monday. I go through some of my early thoughts and transfer plans. So if you do want to see this every weekend, do drop a like on the video and make sure to subscribe as well, just so that I know you do support the idea and you want to see more of it. Something that I've added to the video this year is just some of my early thoughts on the game week. Just some immediate thoughts about some of the players that I like and some of the teams that have done well or potentially quite poorly. And of course, I will update this throughout the week and in my final team selection video as well. So firstly, João Pedro looks like a good enabler. His XG accumulated outside of the penalty was still about 0.3, 0.4. He did have a big chance, and he also got very good minutes. I think he came off in the 88th minute for NC, so March actually came off before João Pedro. And I'm not saying that I expect that to be the case in every single game, But at the very least, I do think João Pedro looks like a good enabler at 5.5. And for the time being, at least for the first three fixtures, I'm not necessarily looking to sell João Pedro. So that is definitely good, especially if you've gone for a Salah draft, because Salah looks so good in the first half of that game. Again, you'll know what happens in the second half. I don't yet know that, but he looks so good in the first half. So if you went for a João Pedro and Salah combination, you're probably laughing at the moment, and that looks like a really, really nice setup. The next point was that Eze was absolutely great. His XG accumulated was between 0.7 and 1, depending on what website you use. So he was accumulating a lot of chances. He created 3 or 4 big chances for his teammates as well. Unfortunately, they didn't convert any of them, but he looked really good. My only slight concern watching the extended highlights was that he was quite deep. So whilst his expected assists were pretty good, he didn't get that many chances to score goals. But he is still on penalties. He's still talismanic. He's great for minutes. He was on corners and free kicks too. Everything you would want from a player. Data was good, just maybe a little bit deeper than I would hope. So let's assess that over the coming game weeks. Watkins and Diaby were brilliant. I know Newcastle battered Villa, which we're going to discuss in a second, but Watkins and Diaby were very, very interesting to me. I slightly regret not going for Watkins, although João Pedro did outscore Watkins for a little bit cheaper, so I'm pretty happy with that. And Diaby just looks like he could potentially at some point in the near future be the best £6.5 million asset. He's basically playing as a striker alongside Watkins. So Watkins and Diaby are definitely on my radar. For the time being, I don't necessarily need them, but I'm definitely considering them in the coming game weeks. Newcastle are 100% on my radar, but not for game week 2, 3, and 4. I think it's like City, Liverpool, Brighton are their next 3 fixtures. But from game week 5, Newcastle's fixtures look brilliant. If you can nail down which of Isak and Wilson get more minutes, that would be an excellent transfer. And to be honest, Wilson and Isak both score off of the bench anyway. Wilson does it every time he comes off the bench. So it might not even matter that they don't start every game because they are so good at coming off the bench. Harvey Barnes and Almiron looked really strong too. Tonali could even be a budget enabler. And of course, we know how good the likes of Trippier and Botman could be for clean sheets. So Newcastle definitely on my radar from game week 5. This might be a slightly controversial point. I wasn't impressed with Martinelli. There were some absolute moments of brilliant. I mean, the assist that he got, whether he meant it or not, it's up to interpretation. But I wasn't overly impressed by Martinelli in his entirety. And I think the thing that I was quite worried about, and this is the issue that we saw when Nketiah started previously with Gabriel Jesus injured, is Martinelli felt very isolated. He was expected to beat the right back, and that was it. There was no 1-2s going on that left-hand side. And I think it's actually the Declan Rice just maybe hasn't played the role that he's playing right now very often. And I think we need to see if Declan Rice plays that sort of left centre mid role a little bit more. He needs to link up with Martinelli a bit more. And Nketiah needs to drift over as well, because where Martinelli is best is as we saw him for the goal, where he's linking up on that left-hand side with other attackers. And I just felt that he looked a little bit isolated. And Arsenal in general, they accumulated less than 1 XG in that game. They didn't have any big chances. Yes, they scored a couple of really good goals, but I was a little bit worried watching that game. So let's see. I think Forest are better defensively than potentially people give them credit for. So maybe it was a little bit of that. But I wasn't overly impressed with Arsenal, and I wasn't overly impressed with the positioning and tactical play that I saw from Martinelli. So let's assess that. We've got maybe Osula, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, could be the best £4.5 million forward. He started for Sheffield United and looked absolutely brilliant. I've currently got Mubama, didn't get any minutes, so maybe Osula was the one to go for. But there are, of course, rumours that Archer could be signing for Sheffield United. If that's the case, we might see a little bit more rotation. But definitely keep your eye on him. He looks super strong. On the Spurs, everything went through Maddison. And I watched that game and it was painful not owning him because I've wanted to own him throughout pre-season. I owned him in my first 3 or 4 drafts. He is FPL gold. He's on all corners, all free kicks. He could still be on penalties. We don't yet know. Son actually came off early. Maddison stayed on the pitch and he was just so good. Everything went through him. 2 assists. He was really good for bonus points despite getting booked. Maddison will be FPL gold this season if he can keep that up. And from at the probably latest game week 4, I'm going to want Maddison in my team. And in my transfer plan section in a minute, I will talk about how I can get Maddison in. And then finally, in that Spurs-Brentford game, Henry and apparently it's Udogi. People mug me off for saying it like that, but I think that's how you pronounce it. They both looked very attacking at 4.5, and I think they are arguably, if you're looking for attacking returns as well as clean sheets, I think Henry and Udogi are probably 2 of the best options that you can go for. So if you're looking to make a defensive transfer soon, they could be 2 of the best options. So those are just some of my early thoughts on game week 1. And of course, I am recording this at halftime in the Chelsea-Liverpool game. Salah looks unbelievable. Liverpool look very attacking, and Chilwell looks really good as well. And if I am watching that game and the 2 players that caught my eye, to be honest, it is Mohamed Salah and it is Ben Chilwell. So if you own them already, you're probably in a very good position. So those are some of my early thoughts. Again, I'll update that throughout the week. Let's take a look at how my team is currently looking ahead of game week 2. So, of course, I will do an official team selection video on Thursday where we use some of the updated data and discuss things in a little bit more detail. But this is how the team is currently looking, and I'm really, really happy with it. The only actual change at the moment to my team is Turner has come in for Pickford. This was one of the reasons that we said we could potentially rotate Turner and Pickford or Turner and Johnston, because the difficult fixtures for both Pickford and Johnston are in Game Week 2 and Game Week 5. And that's actually the case for Onana as well if you're making that rotation. So, by all accounts, unless I see something that I really don't like about Turner or Forest during the week, it will be Turner coming in for Sheffield United at home and Pickford drops to the bench for Aston Villa away. The rest of the starting 11 is identical, and I am really happy with it. I don't see any positions where I'm like, yeah, you really need to use a transfer there, Ross. I think generally it's okay. The 8 attackers that I chose, I'm happy with. Of course, maybe I could have chosen a slightly better 4.5 forward, but the 7 starters for my attack are looking really, really strong. The benching decisions this week are super easy. And it's one of the reasons that I chose them. I spoke about the fact that Botman and Udogie rotate really nicely with my back 3. Botman's got Man City away. Udogie's got Manchester United at home. I don't want to play them ahead of my back 3. It's only from about Game Week 4, Game Week 5 that Udogie and Botman start to rotate in with my back 3. So I really don't need to make a transfer. And of course, knowing me, I'm quite a patient manager at the start of the season. There is a very good chance that I do roll the transfer, but I'm also not overly keen on rolling it for the sake of it. If you do see a transfer where you're like, do you know what? I've seen enough from Game Week 1. There's a move that I want to make. Go ahead and make it. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be going and taking hits going into Game Week 2, but if you want to and it makes you enjoy the game, go for it. I feel like we can sometimes overemphasize this being patient and rolling a transfer. I tend to find that is the best approach at the start of the season, but that's not the only way to play the game. It is worth noting, I probably should have said this at the start, I do have 2.5 million in the bank. It's one of the reasons that I like this team going into Game Week 1, is that it had all of that money in the bank. So I have so many things that I can do because I can upgrade one of my defenders. For example, I could even do like Chilwell to Trent. I don't really want to, but I've got that much in the bank. Could do like a Saliba to Trippier. I could upgrade any of my attackers if I want to stretch to a slightly more expensive one. For example, Mbeumo can go all the way up to anyone around 9 million. So I've got loads of money there. I could upgrade João Pedro to Watkins if I want to. So I have lots of potential transfers, but nothing I necessarily desperately need to use it on. So what I'd like to do is just take a look at 3 potential transfers that I am kind of considering now and just discuss, do they need to be done in Game Week 2? Could they wait for Game Week 3? And is it potentially a little bit of a knee-jerk if I make them now? So at the moment going into Game Week 2, like I said, I don't necessarily need to make a transfer, but here are some of the players that have interested me in Game Week 1 and that I know I will want probably from at least Game Week 3, Game Week 4 onwards, and that I could potentially make moves this week. So as I said, Maddison really interests me, and I wasn't impressed with Martinelli. So one possible transfer, not necessarily that I need to make in Game Week 2, is Martinelli to Maddison. Of course, this would be for free. It would then give me about 3 million in the bank. I'm sure Maddison will be rising in price very soon after that performance. I like this a lot. I don't need to make it this week, though, I suppose, because Martinelli's got Crystal Palace and Maddison has Manchester United. We'll see how Manchester United get on Monday Night Football. If we do look really, really weak at the back and we look like we're conceding chances, I do think that Spurs will still get chances to score against us. I would expect them to score too. And Maddison looks like he'll be at the heart of it. And actually, Crystal Palace looked fairly decent defensively against Sheffield United. Obviously, not the same opposition as Arsenal, but if I wasn't impressed with Arsenal, I wasn't impressed with Martinelli, I quite like the Palace defence, and I also think Maddison will do very well. This is a transfer that I could make going into Game Week 2, but obviously the big fixture swing from Spurs is for Game Week 3 onwards. So I do look at this and think maybe rolling the transfer and making the move of Martinelli to Maddison in Game Week 3 makes a little bit more sense. And the other reason is I do also have Mbeumo in the midfield that I potentially wouldn't mind selling, although I was quite impressed with anyway. I could do Mbeumo to Maddison, and I would still have about 1.5 million in the bank. So maybe I just leave it another week to decide, do I definitely want Maddison? And if I do I sell Martinelli or do I sell Mbeumo to get there? Or maybe even one of my Manchester United attackers, if I don't think that we look particularly good in Game Week 1 and Game Week 2. So maybe just wait a little bit for that. The other option I've got, this would create a bit of a benching headache, but I obviously have Mubama in my team, and I have 2.5 in the bank. In the first half, again, I've not seen the second half of the Chelsea-Liverpool game, Jackson looks really good. I know he didn't finish any chances or anything like that, but his movement looked very good, and I do think he'll be nailed for Chelsea. Could potentially be on penalties. Hopefully Chelsea get a penalty in the second half and we find that out. But I do like the idea of Mubama to Jackson and having the option to rotate some of my attackers, or even like a Mubama to Wissa or a Mubama to anyone else. Alvarez could be an option. I don't necessarily have to sell one of my 7 starting attackers at the moment because I have the money in the bank. I could upgrade Mubama. But again, Jackson's really nice fixtures come from around Game Week 3 onwards. So this feels like another example where I could potentially wait and decide, do I want to sell Mubama or do I want to sell João Pedro to get to Jackson? But I do really like the idea of having a Chelsea attacker. I think they will score a lot of goals this season. And then the third option this is incredibly knee-jerk, is to go from Bruno Fernandes and Martinelli to Eze and Salah. That should obviously say Tottenham away for Bruno Fernandes. But the idea here is that going into Game Week 1, I could have started with either Martinelli and Bruno or Eze and Salah. And I stuck with Martinelli and Bruno. And I haven't seen how Bruno performs on Monday Night Football. I wasn't overly impressed with Martinelli, and I was impressed with Eze. So obviously the Martinelli to Eze move doesn't feel like a massive downgrade for me, especially as Eze is on penalties as well. So that one transfer there, considering it saved me 1.5, I don't hate it. Unless Salah goes up in price before I want to, I would then have exactly the money in the bank to do Bruno Fernandes to Mohamed Salah. This does feel very knee-jerky based on how I've seen Salah perform in the first half of the Chelsea-Liverpool game. I just don't like not owning him. But I think realistically here, if you decided to go without Salah, you go without Salah. I don't think you start taking hits unless you really want to start bringing in Salah for Game Week 2. You've decided you don't want him. You've had your reasoning for not going for Salah. Taking a hit to then get Salah in for Game Week 2 feels a little bit knee-jerky, if I'm honest. However, the one reason that I like taking hits often is either to prepare you for future game weeks if you feel like you're going to get extra fixtures or better fixtures, or potentially to get you the best captain for a specific week. And Salah, for me, is the best captaincy option in Game Week 2. So I'm taking a -4 to get in what my opinion is the best captaincy option. Maybe it is potentially worth it. But for now, to be honest, I am probably leaning towards rolling a transfer. But I don't mind being a little bit aggressive. If I were to make one of the moves this week, it's probably more likely to be the Martinelli to MADDISON move, because I just think that MADDISON is going to continue to perform well and continue to go up in price. And I genuinely do believe at the moment, based on what I've seen, Martinelli's not going to be the most effective asset, and Martinelli could potentially end up dropping in price. So I might try and make this move a little bit earlier than I first planned. But at the moment, I'm planning on rolling. Please do let me know down below in the comments, what are your current transfer plans for Game Week 2? And who caught your eye in Game Week 1? Who is a player that has turned your head and you're potentially considering bringing him? So guys, there you have it. Those are my Game Week 2 early thoughts and transfer plans. As I said, I'll be doing this video pretty much every single Sunday just to give you something to watch after the football and to give you some of my early thoughts ahead of the upcoming game week. If you did enjoy today's video and you're not yet subscribed, please do consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. We are on the road to what is now 90,000 subscribers, and I would really, really appreciate the support. And also make sure to drop a like on the video as well. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.